Well, in a previous lesson, we looked at the history of atheism, going all the way back before the time of Christ up into our own day. And we mentioned that there's a growing movement all over the globe called New Atheism. And these are scholars and experts in their fields who are writing apologetics or defenses of atheism. And college students and people everywhere are buying these books, reading their books, and also watching their videos on places like YouTube. And so really for the first time in human history, we have a growing movement. It's almost like a religion of people doing evangelism for non-belief in God. They're opposed to Islam, Judaism, Christianity, in any form of religion on the face of the earth. They're opposed to belief in God. So today we're going to look at the most powerful minds in the New Atheist movement, and they are called, jokingly, the Four Horsemen of the New Atheism. Now, the Four Horsemen are Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, and Daniel Dennett. And we're going to look at each one of these authors and their books and their take on atheism and how they contribute to the atheist agenda. So let's get started first with Richard Dawkins. Now, Richard Dawkins is an Oxford Don. He was the University of Oxford Professor of Public Understanding of the Sciences from 1995 until 2008. And he became popular through his book, The Selfish Gene, which was published in 1976. And it's a gene-centered view of evolution. And by the way, the term meme, like a Facebook meme, comes from Dawkins. It's a way of transferring knowledge or a symbol through time. Just like a gene takes genetic material, a meme takes intellectual material and passes it down. Dawkins is also the vice president of the British Humanist Association. In his 1986 book, The Blind Watchmaker, he argues against the watchmaker analogy, which is an analogy that we study here in the New St. Thomas Institute. I think it's a good one. He thinks it's a horrible one. And he says that instead, the evolutionary process is more like a blind watchmaker. It has an element of chaos in it. Now, that's Dawkins. Second of all is Christopher Hitchens. Now, Hitchens is a journalist, and he's coming at atheism not from an Oxford science background, but from a political or journalistic point of view. And Hitchens says that he's socialistic, and he became interested in promoting atheism after the September 11 attacks. This moved him to begin writing and speaking. In his book, God Is Not Great, has been a New York Times bestseller and extremely popular. He did a number of debates, and he died in 2011, December 15th, from complications arising from esophageal cancer. So he's no longer with us. But what's interesting about Hitchens is that he says, I'm not an atheist, I'm an anti-theist. And he promoted this term, anti-theist. He says, it's not just that I don't have a philosophical belief in God, I am actively trying to show that there is no God. So this kind of gives a religious fervor to atheism. Not just that you don't believe in God, you're against belief in God. So that's Christopher Hitchens. All right, now we move on to Sam Harris, or Samuel Harris. For me, I think he is the most influential. I think he's very smart. I think he's very persuasive. He's younger than these men. And I think especially amongst the college age level, Sam Harris is not only funny, but brilliant. Sam Harris, just like Hitchens, says that after the September 11 attacks, he was moved to be more and more open about atheism. And he wrote a book in response to the September 11 attacks called The End of Faith. And get this book was on the New York Times bestseller list for 33 weeks. He received a lot of criticism for that book, and he wrote a follow-up response titled Letter to a Christian Nation. What's interesting about both Harris and Hitchens is that their response against theism happened at September 11th. They saw those attacks as religiously motivated and therefore sought to be opposed to religion. We as Christians, of course, can make a distinction there. They do not. And I think that's something important that we need to keep in our minds as we formulate a defense of Christianity against atheism. Now, Sam Harris is coming at things from a neurological and an ethical point of view. And he says that religion makes people effectively insane. He points, for example, in Catholicism towards transubstantiation. And we're going to watch a clip right now in which he compares the belief that we have of a cracker turning into the body and blood of the Son of God, the Messiah, 2,000 years ago, to the transubstantiation of pancakes to the body and blood of Elvis Presley. It's blasphemous, but I want you to just see how he argues and how he uses humor with his agenda. Here it goes.
But this, to me, is the true horror of religion. It allows perfectly decent and sane people to believe by the billions what only lunatics could believe on their own. If you wake up tomorrow morning thinking that saying a few Latin words over your pancakes is going to turn them into the body of Elvis Presley, you have lost your mind. But if you think more or less the same thing about a cracker and the body of Jesus, you're just a Catholic.
So there's the clip with Sam Harris. You can see that he uses humor, even though it is a blasphemous clip. And I would just encourage you, as an aside, if you're a member of the New St. Thomas Institute, go into the Certificate in Theology module for Eucharistic Theology. There we provide lots of video lessons on how you can understand transubstantiation and how you can defend it. So check that out as well. Okay, moving on, we're going to look at the fourth horseman of New Atheism, and that is Daniel Dennett. Dennett's coming at atheism from the point of view of an evolutionary scientist interested in the common belief of almost all humans that there is a soul or something spiritual about the human, that we're not just bodies. Now, Dennett believes that we are just materialistic bodies, and yet we all have this idea that we dream dreams that are immaterial, we have out-of-body experiences, we have visions and apparitions. Dennett wants to show from science and evolution why it is that we have this belief of a soul or a psyche. So he's coming at it from a scientific point of view, but also a psychological point of view. And he wrote a book in 2006 titled Breaking the Spell, Religion as a Natural Phenomenon. And he shares this with Sam Harris. Both of them believe that religion, or this need for the human material brain to have something like meditation or prayer or visions, is something evolutionary and natural to us. And so, although they're atheists, they believe that we need to have some kind of meditative experience and that this is completely natural, albeit they are atheists, which is very interesting. So, the four horsemen of atheism, just as a review, Dawkins, Hitchens, Harris, and Daniel Dennett, are coming at atheism from different point of view. So Dawkins is looking at it as an Oxford scientist, evolutionary, genetic science. Hitchens is looking at it from a political point of view. He's a journalist. Harris is also a scientist. He's a PhD in neuroscience, and he's looking at it from the neurological but also the ethical point of view. And then Daniel Dennett, a scientist as well, he's looking at it from a psychological point of view. Now, what's important here is all four of the four horsemen of atheism are coming at theism, the belief in God, in different directions. They have it kind of encircled. They have the tower or the fortress encircled. And I think this is why these four men are lifted up, because each of them are providing something to the atheistic apologetic. We as Christians, as theists, as Catholics, need to be aware of the different arguments and the different angles. We need to be aware of the arguments from science and evolution. We need to be aware of the arguments from the political point of view and also see how journalism is using atheistic arguments against us. We need to be aware of the arguments based on ethics. Does religion make people insane or immoral? That's what Harris is saying. How would we answer that? And then, last of all, what about the psychological point of view? How are atheists using psychology in the understanding of evolution and the human psyche against Christianity? So those are the four horsemen. Be aware of them. Be aware of their books. Be aware of their messages, and try to be at least conversant with the message that they are levying against us as believers, as Christians. I hope that was helpful. In the next video lesson, we're going to look at the most popular arguments that atheists use against us and how we can have a rational and reasonable response against them. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next lesson. God bless.